Imagine waking up one day, and before your eyes even open, the past is already waiting for you. Not the past in photographs or stories told around a table, but the past as a living shadow and echo of every mistake, every loss, every word you wished you could take back. It does not knock at your door. It does not ask permission. It is already inside you, breathing with you, woven into your pulse. And as you rise to face the day, you feel it, the strange weight of what has already been, pressing against the possibilities of what could be. Why does it feel so heavy? After all, the past is gone, untouchable, carved into stone. Nothing can be changed, yet somehow it refuses to stay still. It leaks into the present, shaping the way you walk, the choices you make, the way you see yourself when no one else is watching. You may cut your hair, change your clothes, even cross oceans, and yet something follows. Is it memory? Is it guilt? Or is it something far more insidious, a prison built not of bars, but of thought? Consider the paradox. The past no longer exists, and yet it governs us as if it was still alive. People spend lifetimes trying to escape it, burying themselves in distractions, achievements, or new identities. But sooner or later, a moment arrives, a song on the radio, the smell of a place, a sentence overheard, and suddenly, time collapses. You are no longer here. You are back there, trapped in a loop that no amount of willpower seems able to break. But here is the unsettling question. Is it truly the past we are trapped in? Or is it something else? Something about ourselves that clings to the very idea of being trapped? Imagine this contradiction. Two people endure the same storm. One emerges and carries on, scarred but unbroken. The other cannot escape. They relive the thunder every night, long after the rain has dried. Why? Why does one person find release, while another remains chained? And more hauntingly, could it be that the one who remains chained does so, in some hidden way, by choice? Perhaps the most frightening possibility is not that the past has power over us, but that we ourselves are the ones giving it power. That we return to it again and again, not because it pursues us, but because, on some level, we cannot let it go. What does this reveal about us? About the way the human mind, with all its brilliance, becomes its own jailer? Pause for a moment and think about your own life. Have you ever noticed how certain memories replay with a sharpness greater than others? The joy fades, but the shame lingers. The victories dissolve, but the failures burn eternal. Why is the mind so biased toward pain? Is suffering more memorable than peace because it wounds deeper, or because terrifyingly it defines us more than joy ever could? The truth gnaws at the edges of consciousness. We may secretly fear that without our past wounds, we are no one at all. Our identity becomes stitched into what we've endured, what we regret, what we lost. And to release that past would be to risk losing ourselves. So the question stands, vast and unresolved. Are we victims of memory, or are we addicts of it? Do we hold onto the past because it refuses to let go of us, or because we, in some twisted loyalty, refuse to let go of it? If time only moves forward, why does the mind insist on circling back? Why does something that no longer exists in the world still exist inside us, more real than the air we breathe? And if we cannot escape our past, if we cannot silence its voice, then what is left for us? Are we doomed to relive our own ghosts until the end of our days? Or is there some hidden doorway, some forbidden key that can break the cycle? The question is not merely intellectual. It is visceral. It is personal. You feel it in your chest, in the moments you avoid silence, in the restless need for noise to drown out what waits in the dark. And yet, as disturbing as it is, perhaps it is also an invitation, a challenge, to uncover what lies beneath this endless attachment to what has already died. Because until we understand why some people can never escape their past, we cannot hope to understand ourselves. The hidden problem and its psychological, philosophical roots. The truth is that the past does not live in the world, lives in us. It is not carved into stones or written into the air. It is etched into neural pathways, buried in the unconscious, and replayed through habits we barely recognize. What we call the past is not simply memory. It is architecture, the scaffolding of the self. Carl Jung once wrote that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. This is the hidden problem. The past becomes invisible architecture. It shapes the way we interpret every new experience, every face, every possibility, until it feels less like memory and more like destiny. Consider trauma. A child who grows up feeling abandoned may, decades later, still struggle to trust intimacy, even when surrounded by people who love them. Why? Because the nervous system remembers what the conscious mind has tried to forget. The body tightens, the heart races, the walls go up, and suddenly, without knowing why, they sabotage the very thing they desire most. This is not the past haunting them in some supernatural way. It is their own mind replaying an old script, convinced it is still relevant. Nietzsche, with his sharp, uncompromising clarity, warned of this trap when he spoke of eternal recurrence. The idea that we live the same patterns over and over, not because the world repeats itself, but because we do. Our inner loops create outer repetitions. The drunkard who vows never to drink again but finds himself at the bar. The lover who swears they will not fall for the same type of person, and yet, almost magnetically, does. The employee who flees a toxic job only to discover the same dynamic in the next workplace. This is the machinery of the past, disguised as fate. But why do we cling to it? Why does the mind prefer the pain it knows over the freedom it fears? Psychology offers part of the answer. The brain is a prediction machine. Its purpose is survival, not happiness. If pain was once predictable, the brain registers it as safer than the unknown. In other words, familiarity becomes a prison we decorate with excuses. Schopenhauer put it differently. A man can do what he wills, but he cannot will what he wills. Our desires, our fears, even our attempts to change are often shackled to the machinery of a past we never consciously chose. Think of identity. We do not merely carry the past, we build ourselves out of it. Every story we tell about who we are, every explanation for why we act as we do, carries the fingerprints of what has already happened. And yet, identity is double-edged. It comforts us by offering coherence, but it traps us by freezing us in a narrative. I am this way because of what happened. A sentence that begins as explanation quietly hardens into destiny. Viktor Frankl, who survived the unimaginable brutality of the concentration camps, saw through this illusion. He wrote, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. But here is the subtle danger. If the past colonizes that space, then choice shrinks until it feels non-existent. We mistake conditioned reaction for inevitable reality, and society does little to free us. In fact, it deepens the chains. Entire industries are built on reminding you of your past. Advertising thrives on nostalgia. Politics thrives on inherited wounds. Entertainment thrives on recycled archetypes. The culture whispers, "You are what has happened to you. You are your scars. You are your history. It rarely whispers the alternative. You can be otherwise. But there is another, darker reason people cannot escape their past. It provides meaning. Pain, strangely enough, offers identity and significance. Sartre once argued that we are condemned to be free, that we must create our own meaning in a world that offers none. Yet for many, the past already provides a ready-made meaning. I suffered, therefore I am. To abandon the past would be to stare into the terrifying void of possibility. And so, we cling. This is the hidden problem. The past is not just behind us, it is inside us, woven into the very way we experience the present. We mistake its voice for our own. We call it reality when in truth it is memory, masquerading as truth. But what does this mean for you? It means that every decision, every relationship, every opportunity is filtered through invisible lenses you did not choose. It means the arguments you repeat, the fears you cannot explain, the shame that surfaces without warning, all are echoes of an old story you may not even realize you are still telling. Pause for a moment. Think about the last time you felt anger disproportionate to the situation, or sadness that lingered longer than it should. Where did it really come from? Was it the present moment, or was it the past, resurrected in disguise? The past survives, not by existing outside of us, but by colonizing our interpretation of now. And until we confront this, we are not truly living, we are reenacting. The hidden roots are psychological and philosophical, but their effect is deeply personal. They convince you that you are smaller than you are, that freedom is impossible, that change is futile. They whisper that you are your wounds, and to abandon them would be to abandon yourself. And yet, what if that whisper is the greatest lie of all? The unseen consequences. Imagine a life lived not in the present, but in echoes. You think you are deciding freely, yet your choices bend like reeds in a wind that blew years ago. This is the first consequence of being chained to the past, the illusion of freedom. You walk into a room and believe you are, meeting it with fresh eyes, but your reactions are already scripted. The smile you give, the suspicion you hide, the hesitation before speaking, all carry the fingerprints of yesterday. And because the past hides itself in the present, you rarely notice. Instead, you explain it away. That's just how I am. That's my personality. But is it truly, or is it the past, speaking through you in a voice so familiar you no longer hear it? The unseen consequences stretch further. Neuroscience tells us that the brain wires itself through repetition. Each time a memory resurfaces, the neural circuit strengthens, as if the past insists on rehearsing itself until it becomes unbreakable. This is why someone betrayed once may become hypervigilant forever, seeing treachery where none exists. This is why failure at a young age can calcify into a lifelong belief: I am not enough. But these consequences do not remain private. They ripple outward into relationships, communities, societies. Consider love. A person unable to escape the betrayal of one relationship may unknowingly poison the next, punishing the innocent for the sins of the guilty. They cling to suspicion, erect invisible walls, and then grieve when intimacy never arrives. And so the cycle repeats. Pain begets distrust, distrust begets distance, and distance confirms the very fear that began it all. Or think of ambition. Someone who once failed publicly may sabotage themselves before trying again. They procrastinate, make excuses, lower expectations, not because they cannot succeed, but because their past failure whispers louder than the possibility of triumph. Entire careers are lost, not to lack of talent, but to ghosts of humiliation. Even entire cultures suffer this way. Nations carry old wounds like family heirlooms. Wars fought generations ago become symbols of identity. Old injustices fossilize into permanent suspicion between groups. The past, left unresolved, metastasizes into the present, creating cycles of violence, resentment, and revenge that seem eternal. Look at the world and you will see it everywhere. Hatred passed down like inheritance, wounds rehearsed until they become rituals. The most insidious consequence, however, is internal. When you cannot escape your past, you do not merely relive pain, you begin to confuse it with who you are. A person, abandoned, might say, "I am unlovable." A person abused might whisper, "I am broken." A person who failed might believe, "I am nothing." These are not memories. These are identities forged out of suffering, and once adopted, they resist every attempt at change. This identity trap leads to another consequence: self-fulfilling prophecy. If you believe you are unworthy of love, you behave in ways that push people away. If you believe you are destined to fail, you sabotage your own opportunities. The past becomes a curse, not because it dictates reality, but because it dictates belief, and belief sculpts reality. Jean-Paul Sartre wrote that man is nothing else but what he makes of himself. But what happens when what he makes of himself is only a repetition of what was once done to him? He becomes both prisoner and jailer, victim and perpetrator. The bars are invisible, but the confinement is absolute. Perhaps the most tragic consequence is that life itself slips away. The present moment, that fragile miracle of existence, is sacrificed to memories of what has already died. You miss the laughter in front of you because you are haunted by laughter that turned to silence years ago. You cannot taste the sweetness of now because bitterness from then still lingers on your tongue. In this way, the past steals not only your freedom, but your very experience of living. Ask yourself, how many moments have you lost because you were not truly there? How many conversations have you half-lived, your body present but your mind entangled in what once was? How much of your life has been surrendered to ghosts? And yet, the consequences deepen even further. When people remain chained to their past, they unconsciously transmit it forward. The child of a bitter parent inherits the bitterness, not through words, but through atmosphere. The employee raised in fear of failure spreads that fear to those they lead. Trauma becomes generational, carried like a hidden disease. What begins as personal history becomes collective destiny. Aldous Huxley once observed that experience is not what happens to you, it's what you do with what happens to you. But if you cannot escape your past, you are not doing anything with it, it is doing something with you. It bends your life into shapes you did not choose. This is the subtle horror. You may live decades thinking you are free, all the while acting out an invisible script written long ago. You may believe you are pursuing dreams, when in truth you are running from old fears. You may think you are loving another, when in truth you are still trying to heal the wounds of the first. And so, the past spreads itself across the canvas of your present until there is no space left for new colors. You live surrounded by repetition, disguised as routine, by memory disguised as reality. The question, then, is no longer whether the past affects us, it is how much of us is the past. Are we even capable of living without it? Or are we simply vessels through which history recycles itself? This realization is terrifying, but it is also necessary, because unless we see the unseen consequences, we will never find the courage to break them. The past will remain in control, not because it is powerful, but because it is invisible. And perhaps the greatest tragedy of all is this: if you cannot escape your past, you may never truly discover who you are beyond it. The rebellion, how to break free. Every prison has its architecture, and every architecture has its cracks. The chains of the past are no different. They feel unbreakable, yet history is filled with men and women who shattered them not by erasing memory, but by transforming their relationship to it. The first rebellion begins with recognition. To see that the past is not the same as the present is a revolutionary act. Think of it. Your body trembles at a memory, your chest tightens at a name, your mind recoils from a smell. But none of those triggers belong to now, they belong to then. The brain, unable to distinguish, repeats the alarm. To recognize this distinction is to plant the first seed of freedom. Carl Jung called this individuation, the process of integrating what lies in shadow. When you drag the unconscious into the light, you stop being merely acted upon by your history and begin to act with awareness. This is rebellion because it demands courage. Courage to look at what you fear, to confront shame without flinching, to admit that you have carried ghosts for too long. But recognition alone is not enough. You must also dare the unthinkable, forgiveness. Not forgiveness in the weak sense of excusing harm, but forgiveness as liberation from carrying it. To forgive does not mean to condone. It means to refuse to let the injury define you forever. As Nietzsche wrote, to be free is to be able to overcome. True forgiveness is not for the other person, is for you, a cutting of the rope that ties you to a sinking stone. Yet even forgiveness must be paired with something more radical, the act of rewriting your story. Remember, identity is narrative. If your story has been, I am broken because of what happened, then you must rebel by telling a different one. I am the one who survived. I am the one who endured. I am the one who chooses differently now. This rewriting does not erase the past, but it reclaims authorship. You cease being a character trapped in someone else's script and become the author of your own. Viktor Frankl embodied this rebellion in the camps. Stripped of everything, family, freedom, dignity, he discovered the last of human freedoms, the power to choose one's attitude. He saw that even when everything external is lost, the inner stance remains untouched. To rebel against the past, then, is to reclaim that inner space and say, this may have happened to me, but it does not decide me. There is another weapon in this rebellion, presence. The past thrives on absence, your absence from the moment unfolding now. When you return your attention to the present with ferocity, the past loses its grip. Practices like meditation are not cliches. They are acts of war. To sit in silence, to breathe, to anchor yourself in what is real. Now this is how you remind the nervous system that it no longer needs to fight a battle already finished. And yet, perhaps the most counterintuitive rebellion is this: to embrace suffering rather than flee from it. For what you resist persists. The more you try to bury the past, the more power it gains in secrecy. But when you turn toward it, when you face the wound directly, something paradoxical occurs. It dissolves. The monster in the dark shrinks under the light of awareness. As Rainer Maria Rilke once wrote, perhaps all the dragons in our lives are princesses who are only waiting to see us act, just once, with beauty and courage. This rebellion is not quick. It is not a single battle, but a lifetime of choosing differently. To step into intimacy again despite old betrayal. To try again despite old failure. To love despite the risk of loss. Each act of courage reclaims territory from the past until you inhabit your life more fully than before. Do not mistake rebellion for erasure. The goal is not to forget the past, it is to transmute it. Gold is born from fire, diamonds from pressure, wisdom from wounds. The past will always remain, but you can decide whether it imprisons you or empowers you. Think of the countless stories of people who broke free. Nelson Mandela, imprisoned for 27 years, emerged not with bitterness but with vision, refusing to let hatred dictate the future. Malala Yousafzai, shot for daring to seek education, transformed her wound into a global movement for freedom. These are not superhuman anomalies. They are examples of what rebellion against the past can look like when lived to its fullest. And so the question turns to you. What story are you still telling that chains you to yesterday? What wound are you carrying as identity rather than experience? What would your life look like if you dared to rebel not by erasing the past, but by refusing to bow to it? This rebellion does not promise comfort. In fact, it demands discomfort, for growth always does. But it offers something infinitely greater than comfort: freedom. The freedom to live without the constant echo of what has already died. The freedom to love without suspicion, to strive without sabotage, to breathe without ghosts clinging to your lungs. And here lies the deepest paradox of all. The more you release the past, the more you realize it was never holding you, you were holding it. The rebellion, then, is not a battle against history, but a battle against yourself, against the part of you addicted to repetition, loyal to pain. And if you win this battle, Evan, once you discover a truth that changes everything, you are larger than your history. This is the doorway. The past will not walk you through it. No one else can drag you there. But if you choose to step through, you will discover a world that has been waiting all along. The world of the unchained present, the ultimate truth, the final, most powerful realization. Imagine standing at the threshold of your own life. Behind you, the shadows of everything you have endured: heartbreak, shame, failure, loss. Before you, the vast unknown. You turn, half in fear, half in habit, and you see it, the past, stretching endlessly like a road you've walked too many times. And then you face forward, and there is nothing but space, silence, possibility. The question becomes unbearable. Which direction will define you? Here lies the ultimate truth, the revelation so often hidden. You are not your past. You are not the sum of what has been done to you, nor the sum of what you have done. You are not the echoes of yesterday's failures, nor the weight of yesterday's pain. You are the consciousness witnessing it all, the presence in which the past arises, and the freedom that can choose what to do now. The past exists, yes. It shaped you, scarred you, even built the scaffolding of who you appear to be. But it does not own you unless you let it. The prison bars were never locked. From the outside, they were held shut from within. And the moment you loosen your grip, the door swings open. This truth is not easy to accept. It demands a death, the death of the old self, the death of the story you've been telling. To say, I am not my past, is to risk stepping into the terrifying void of becoming something new. And yet, what greater act of courage could there be than to allow yourself to be reborn while still alive? Philosophers have circled this truth for centuries. The Stoics insisted that the only thing we ever truly possess is the present moment. Buddha taught that clinging to the past is the root of suffering. Nietzsche challenged us to embrace our lives so completely that we would choose to relive them eternally. And modern psychology echoes the same refrain. Identity is malleable, the brain is plastic, change is possible if only we dare. The final realization, then, is not to escape the past, but to transcend it, to carry it as fuel, not as chains. to see every scar not as a mark of weakness, but as proof of survival, to reinterpret suffering not as evidence of brokenness, but as the soil from which depth, compassion, and strength can grow. When you reach this understanding, the paradox dissolves. You stop asking, "How do I escape my past?" and begin asking, "How do I use it?" The pain becomes teacher. The failure becomes compass. The wound becomes doorway. And suddenly, what once imprisoned you now propels you. Picture this: a person who once believed they were unworthy of love now uses that very wound to love others more deeply than most can imagine. A person who once failed spectacularly now uses that failure to mentor others into success. A person who once carried rage transforms it into art, into music, into movement that heals rather than harms. This is not fantasy. This is what happens when the past is transmuted into meaning rather than chain. Viktor Frankl captured it with piercing clarity. In some way, suffering ceases to be suffering at the moment it finds a meaning. The ultimate rebellion is not forgetting the past, it's turning it into something so powerful that it no longer feels like a burden but a gift. And here comes the most powerful realization of all. Freedom is not given, it is chosen. You may wait for the past to let go of you, but it never will. You must let go of it. And the instant you do, even if just for a breath, you taste something indescribable, the raw aliveness of now unpolluted by ghosts. In that moment, the universe feels wider, the weight lifts. You glimpse yourself not as the victim of history, but as the author of possibility. You realize that time is not a straight line dragging you backward, it is a canvas, and you hold the brush. But the choice is relentless. Every day, the past will knock. Every day, it will tempt you to repeat the old story. And every day, you will have to decide, do I rehearse the ghost, or do I breathe the present? Do I recycle the old identity, or do I create a new one? The past will always be there, but so will this truth. You are larger than it. You are the space in which it appears. And nothing, not memory, not trauma, not regret, can diminish the infinite vastness of that space. So stand at the threshold. Look back if you must. Honor what has been. Grieve what was lost. But then turn forward. Step into the unknown, trembling perhaps, but free. Because the most powerful realization is not that you can escape your past, it is that you were never truly bound by it. You are not the storm. You are the sky that held it. You are not the wound. You are the life that keeps healing. You are not the story that was written. You are the author who can always begin again. And maybe, just maybe, that is what life has been asking of you all along. Not to erase the past, not to destroy it, but to finally see that it is only a chapter and that the book is still being written. So ask yourself now, as the silence settles, what will you write next?